Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Diane Sharp, the Director of Admissions for the Wharton MBA Program for Executives in Philadelphia. We are having the discussion tonight will be around the commute, why it is worth getting on a plane to attend the Wharton School. So with me tonight is my counterpart on the West Coast. I'd like to turn it over to her.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Barb Kraft, Director of Admissions for Wharton San Francisco. We are one program, two locations, so we're just getting going actually with our recruiting for our class that'll start the end of May 2021, and we are going full throttle. We are anticipating starting in person end of May. So as Diane mentioned, we are counterparts, so she's recruiting for a class in Philadelphia while I'm recruiting for a class in San Francisco. We're one program, two locations, one admissions committee. We work very, very closely together, and we get students from all over the country, which is why we thought it might be really important to have this particular topic tonight. The commute is the least of the things that you will encounter with the Wharton program and getting to the program. You're really primarily committing to a coast for your first year. So as I mentioned, we're one admissions committee. So we do ask, however, that you either apply to San Francisco or Philadelphia. That is for the first year of the program or the core of the program. And year two is when we get into the elective portion of the program. And there's a lot of flexibility, meaning that you can go to either coast in year two, whether that's just for one or two classes, a whole term, or actually the whole year. And we have some members of our panel who have actually done that, and they can speak to that. With that, we do have a terrific panel in store, and I don't want to hold it up any further. Our application deadlines are December 2nd and February 10th, so there's still ample time to apply for that May class, and you'll hear us talk about that a little bit more toward the end of the webinar. Thanks.
Great. So as Barb mentioned, and as you can see, we have some of our alumni with us tonight. And we're going to be asking them questions about their commute and the experience. And please just go right ahead at any time and post your questions in the chat online. So I am going to ask the panelists to introduce themselves. If you wouldn't mind just starting with when you graduated, what you do for a living, where you're commuting from or commuted from, and just a basic introduction of yourself. And we will start we'll do it geographically. We'll start in the Southwest. So Vidya, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. Hey, everyone. My name is Vidya Murthy. I graduated from San Francisco in 2018. I currently work for a startup down here in San Diego focused on cybersecurity in medical devices. And while I was in the program, I was commuting from San Diego to San Francisco.
Thank you, Vidya. So now we'll go to the Northwest. Carol, if you would, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm sure you guys are really enjoying the process that y'all are going through right now to select the right programs for you. For myself, I graduated from the program in 2019, last year, and I commuted back and forth from Portland, Oregon to the San Francisco campus. I currently work at Nike, leading digital brand for Jordan. And I can't wait to get into the conversation. There are a lot of amazing things with the program. Traveling actually is probably not one of the biggest challenges there are. There are very few, if any, but the traveling piece was actually something that added a little extra flavor and interest into getting out of your day-to-day in your current city and exploring a completely new area and location. So excited to talk with you guys a little bit more about that.
Thanks, Carol. All right, we're in the center of the country. David, please.
Yes, hello everyone. So my name is David Green. I currently live in Houston, and this is where I lived when I went to school. I graduated 2 years ago. I was a classmate of Vidya's, where I did my first year on the West Coast at the San Francisco campus. But being geographically split between the two campuses, I, for various reasons, chose to do my second year on the East Coast. So I have experience with traveling to both sides and can comment on that experience as well. Looking forward to answering your questions.
David, I'm jealous about that opportunity too. I didn't get a chance to do it.
Yeah, but there are lots of opportunities to commingle. Yeah. Good, and we're going to go to the Northeast now. Santi.
Yeah, and I'm Santiago Bueno, currently located 2 hours east of Toronto, due to the pandemic. But prior to that, and while I was doing WEMBA, I actually lived in Toronto. I graduated this year, 2020, and I'm currently the head of corporate development and mergers and acquisitions for Silvo's Brands, which is a food company, and probably our most well-known brand is Rayo's Homemade. So if you like pasta sauce, Rayo's Homemade is you should definitely try it. Shameless plug there. But anyways, traveling to Philly for me was actually part of the experience. I made some great friends by doing so, and I look forward to telling you more about my experience doing so.
Great, thanks everyone. I'm going to kick off the questions just to get things warmed up a little bit. And in particular, I'm going to throw it out there to all of you on the panel. Why did you decide on Wharton, even though it may not have been local for you?
Any takers? I'll go first.
Take it.
I'll go first and jump in. I think for me, I did look at quite a few programs to really determine which program was the best fit. Like I said, I'm in Portland, Oregon, so there actually isn't a tier 1 MBA program in my city. And one of the things that was really important to me when searching for a program was, of course, making sure that the program had all of the right things that I was interested in, with where I wanted to take my career, their areas of focus, where they truly specialize. But also I wanted to go to a program that I knew was one of the best. Wharton is that, so that's really pretty clear. After doing a lot of research with so many programs, Wharton was the one that actually felt like it created a community for the executives, and you actually felt like you were getting a full-in immersive MBA program. It wasn't an MBA light. You had all of the bells, the whistles, the rigor, the professors, etc., that would help truly make this program and experience one of a kind. And so when it came to selecting a destination, that was maybe level 2 or 3 on my list, because I knew everything truly outweighed some of the challenges people may feel they have traveling. So that was a big one for me. And then I loved, to David's point earlier, you can eventually select campuses. So you do have Philly and or San Francisco your second year, and knowing that I had that option to go deeper in different geographies. Every student cohort actually feels a little bit different, West Coast versus East Coast. You guys would see that, but that option was something that I really appreciated and wanted to try to take advantage of. But unfortunately, due to a couple of personal situations, I wasn't able to make it to Philly. But that was those are some of the reasons that really helped me choose Wharton.
Maybe I'll go next. So, being in Canada and in Toronto, I naturally have the option of going to a Canadian school here, and I'm not sure if there's any Canadians in the audience tonight. But for me, it was more about having a global brand. As Carol mentioned, not only global brand, but also just going through an undiluted MBA experience was key. When I look at getting a return for my investment, because it was a very large investment that we all made in our careers. You want to make sure you're getting the best bang for your buck. You're getting the opportunities. You're getting the network. And as I evaluated programs, my conclusion was that Wharton was the best for that. And I'll be honest, I've only graduated in May, so it's been a few months, and I've more than gotten what I expected out of the program, and then some. So very, very, very happy with how everything played out, and I ultimately think it was the right experience to broaden my horizons, go to the Wharton School, even if it involved traveling to Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean, I'd echo the sentiment shared by both of you. The only thing I would add, logistically, when you live in Southern California, it takes you an hour to go anywhere, right? So for me, hopping on a plane for 45 minutes versus driving anywhere in Southern California, it's actually faster for me to get to Northern California than it was for me to drive up to Los Angeles or somewhere else. So in that sense, there's a very logical kind of commute consideration that you have to consider. But realistically, the discussion around investment, right? You're investing time not just in commuting, but in the program and everything else. So this is really, at least from my math, a pretty small percentage of how much you ultimately invest, and it was well worth it.
Yeah, similar themes with me. So my thought process started first with what are the schools that have the best reputation? So that maybe gives you a list of 5 to 10. And then it came down to which ones replicated the true MBA experience. Carol spoke about trying to avoid the MBA light and getting the best bang for your buck. So that narrowed the list down even more. And then to me, it was then down to Wharton and maybe one or two other schools. The thing that really attracted me to Wharton and ultimately became the reason why I only applied to Wharton was I really liked the format of the program. And specifically with the second year being very flexible with being all electives, allowing you to mold the program to whatever areas that you wanted to study. Now there are options living in Houston. There are some good schools locally here. One other reason why I did not consider them, when you look at your own geography, they tend to be based on certain industries. So Houston's very dominant in energy and medical. And I believe that if I'd gone to school here, that the class body would be mostly dominant of those industries. Whereas Wharton has the luxury of really creating a very diverse class in terms of professional backgrounds. And that absolutely sold, and it was fantastic having that diversity.
Great, thanks, guys. If you could, let's get practical here. How did you literally manage the commute? Like, how did it impact your life? What extra considerations? And do you have any tips for the folks who are logging in who have to consider this?
So I'll go first. I am a self-proclaimed geek when it comes to finding deals. So I am all about opening up the credit cards, getting the points, and getting flights. So pretty much the whole first, I don't know, 18 months, I don't think I paid for a single flight. I was able to basically leverage all my lovely credit card purchases to support my getting to San Francisco without an issue. So in that sense, if you do plan ahead, it's actually quite doable. There were times where it was less to fly up on a flight than to fill up the tank of gas on my car. And from a time perspective, to talk about kind of what the real impact was. So there are several weeks where you only have class Friday, Saturday, and some weeks where you have Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I, for the first couple months, would regularly fly in on the Thursday before, just to feel like I was there and I had kind of marginal control over what my life was including at the time. But it also served as a really good way for me to call up my new classmate best friends and say, hey, I'm here a night early, let's hang out. And you could have dinner and crash at someone's couch and kind of figure out how to get to know people independent of this commute situation. And then I was also super lucky, and once I started flying up kind of Friday mornings before class started, I could do that and still get to class on time. There were about 6 other San Diego folks on my same Southwest flight, and it was like a little carpool ride up to San Francisco. You get on the plane, you goof around for the hour flight that it is, and then you get coffee and then you're in class. And it's just, it was really a lovely way to connect with folks that you live nearby and then have that shared experience once you're in San Francisco.
Yeah, I'm similar.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I'm similar in that way too. I was a geek when it came to mileage, points, etc. I did a lot of our classmates were really thoughtful about which airline they wanted to fly on to make sure they accrue all those points. And then right after I graduated, I also reached 10 years at my company, and so I had a sabbatical for 6 months, and or not 6 months, but 6 weeks, and I was able to use all of those points basically to fly to 7 different countries around the world. So that was kind of my treat to myself post. So even being thoughtful around that, I think, is something that's helpful. But a couple of things I did, my approach was a little bit different because sometimes with my work schedule, depending on which like campaigns we're launching, there are days where I may need to be in the office until 7 p.m. right before class the next day. And so I actually put a lot of my flights the morning of. So I take the first morning out of Portland at 5 a.m. or so. And then I also had a buddy in Portland, so we'd always carpool and go together because we all lived in the same area. So that was really helpful. We were like kind of each other's motivators and cheerleaders and like best friends or flight buddies throughout the program. And that way I can kind of control my full day and make sure I'm maximizing just time within my flight schedule, starting class, and then moving forward throughout the rest of that weekend and our 3-day experience. The other thing too, at least that's helpful, a lot of times we're able to use our flights to study. So depending on where you're coming from, that's actually really good downtime and study time, especially if you have family or kids and you want some of that downtime. So that was something that a lot of us use it for. And those were a couple of my tips and tricks. Find a buddy if you can. And then 2, be really thoughtful about if you want to do every day, every evening and or morning flights before the program, and then think about which airlines and make sure you rack up on the mileage and the deals, because it definitely helps in the long run for many different reasons.
Yeah, no, I'm actually had a similar experience to Vidya in that I preferred flying on the Thursday nights. You know, I would try to take kind of like a 5 or 6 p.m. flight, which got me in time for dinner and you know, catch up with classmates. You'll find that, you know, the locals are very generous, and I actually, you know, I might have paid for like 3 hotel rooms at the beginning of the program, and that was it. Like every other time, I was either in a second bedroom, couch, pull-up couch, you name it, and it was great. Just, you know, being part of you know, kind of like the local community, and you know, I'd fly in and figure out what pub everybody's at, and you know, go to a microbrewery or whatnot, grab dinner there. You know, some of these people actually ended up being kind of my group members in the second term when we didn't have our small learning team anymore. So you know, I'd fly in and we work on a project and whatnot, which was quite nice. And yeah, no, like listen, like I think I made some of my best friends out of the program by flying in early and getting to know them you know, much deeper by you know, bumming their couch.
Sure.
And I thought I would mention that it is a residential program. So on class nights, we do house you at one of the local hotels or the Executive Conference Center, either in Philadelphia or San Francisco. So that is included as part of your tuition. Should you decide to fly in the night before, you kind of are on your own or relying on your local friends in the class. But you have that option to fly in the night before or not. In San Francisco, we do start class at 9:30, so many of our students do opt to fly in that morning, or kind of up and out early. And once they fly in, they're bringing their luggage to the conference center, either in Philadelphia or San Francisco, dropping off their luggage, heading into the dining room, grabbing a quick bite of breakfast, and then heading straight into class. At the end of that Friday, then they do check into the local hotels, East or West. And the next morning they check out. They do have class at 9 o'clock on Saturday, since everyone is already there. And then on Saturday afternoon, class ends very abruptly at 4 o'clock. And there are always lots of lines of Ubers and Lyfts to the airports. So you always have some commuting buddies with you.
And one thing I just thought of too, if anyone is really thinking about all the details, but it was helpful for me, whichever airline you go with or tickets you buy, really think about the free change fees, because there are a lot of times where class might end and you're planning to leave right after, but you realize you do want to stay after for dinner, and then you just change your flight. So that happens quite frequently during the time too. So just more of a tactical note in case anyone is actually in the process of planning for that.
So I used to absolutely take advantage of that. I'd buy multiple return flights home, and then depending on my mood, I would pick the one that I wanted to do and come home accordingly.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, so give my perspective. So 2 things. One, it takes a lot of planning from my point, I had to fly the night before. There was no flight that I could take the morning of. So planning your day, if that involves bringing your work or your schoolwork to your work and then driving straight from your office to the airport. But planning in general is a theme that will follow with the MBA program. So this will just be another thing that you learn how to plan and become efficient at. Also, some people touch on creativity. That's looking for other solutions, people to stay with. So I did the same when I flew to San Francisco. When classes finished on Saturdays, basically the only option was to fly back to red eye, which I did not want to do. Wanted to get some proper sleep after going through everything. So I found that there was a family member that was a couple hours away from San Francisco, and I would take a bus, visit that family, and then fly from that city back to Houston, and that worked out great for me.
That's a good one.
Nice. And just to add on to what Barb said, the 4 o'clock lines on Saturday in the East Coast, there were always people buddying up to go to the airport or to the Amtrak station. From Philly, the airport's about 20 minutes away on a Saturday, and the Amtrak station's about 5 minutes away. So we have the Northeast corridor of folks.
And in San Francisco, you can fly into Oakland or SFO. And Vidya and I often would have the trick of maybe, booking one-way flights so that it may be less expensive and a better schedule to fly into one airport and out of another airport. It doesn't lock you into a loop or a particular airline, so you can really do your shopping. We have a question that came in for David asking, what are some of the differences that you experienced between the San Francisco campus and the Philadelphia campus or cohorts?
From a traveling perspective, or from?
Let's stick with traveling, but feel free to add in others.
Sure, yeah. Traveling, obviously being in the middle of the country, you're fighting the time difference in different ways. So going to the West Coast, I would have to, I could take a later flight, probably work a fuller day on the Friday or Thursday. But then there's difficulty coming back and having to deal with that red-eye flight or waiting to fly the next day. Whereas East Coast, finding a flight back on Saturday evenings was not an issue. So classes would finish, if I remember correctly, around 3 p.m. and there'd be a convenient flight at 5 that I could get me home by Saturday night. As far as culture, those two coasts, I'm sure that varies year by year, just the personalities of the classes. But perhaps the West Coast class maybe has a slight lean towards the tech side, and the East Coast class may have a slight lean towards the finance side. But even besides that, both classes can be very diverse in terms of backgrounds. So I've heard stories of some years one coast has certain personality that the other one doesn't, and it can change the following year. So it may just be how it's kind of the random mixture of the classes. But the programs are essentially identical, and yeah, in one side you'll deal with fog, the other side you may deal with snow.
Exactly.
Has challenges.
And we find
the
that
one thing I would add
the people who tend to come from farther away to commute are the ones who plan ahead on those bad weather days. They show up, and the locals are the ones that show up late.
Actually, I can talk a little bit about bad weather because coming from Toronto, I got my fair share of snow days. So one of the nice things, as kind of Barbara was mentioning, in the West Coast, you can fly into Oakland or SFO. In Philly, you're really close to New York, you're really close to DC, you're even close to LaGuardia. So in days where there was my flight might get canceled, I would talk to the airline and be like, hey, just get me on a flight to either Newark, LaGuardia or DC, and then I can just get on the Amtrak and be in Philly, and no problem. Even once I ended up flying into Newark, and it was cheaper for me and one of my classmates who commuted with me from Toronto to just take an Uber. It was cheaper than the Amtrak. So there's multiple options. And I also learned the hard way that Pittsburgh is not close to Philadelphia. I did not know that. One day, one of the cancellations I had, everything was canceled, like to DC and to New York and LaGuardia. And then I saw Pittsburgh. I was like, oh, Pittsburgh, that's in Pennsylvania. And yeah, I flew there. And when I told my wife that I was flying to Pittsburgh, she was like, why are you doing that? And then I ended up renting a car and driving several hours the next morning. But
I will say the one thing about traveling and having a commute, something inevitably will go wrong at some point, and you just kind of got to go with the flow and figure it out and just repivot, and you'll be fine. It happens to the best.
Yeah.
And actually, I must add that time I ended up in Pittsburgh, one of my classmates who is from Pittsburgh arranged for his assistant to get me a hotel room to go to the hotel, get me the car, and got me safely to Philadelphia the next day. So that's kind of the power of the network and, just the friends you make at WEMBA.
And don't worry, Santiago. Even some Americans don't know how far apart Philadelphia and Pittsburgh are. So yeah, as Barb mentioned at the outset, we consider ourselves one big program. We are just two cohorts, two campuses, but the professors are flying to San Francisco. It's the same program, and the cohorts do reflect, the industries that are there. Pretty much every industry is going to be represented on each coast, just in different proportions. So you're going to have the ability to interact with folks from both coasts throughout the 2 years. We've got some built-in ways, and there's some ways that you can make happen to get to know pretty much everybody who's graduating in the same year. So we have a question about, I think we've covered a lot about the commute, but the question is, what would you say are the top experiences you learned from the faculty and from your peers? How do you feel that impacted your education overall?
I mean,
I can start.
Yeah.
I'll go for it.
I was going to say a ton. It's almost a hard question to answer because you're literally, at least for me, learning not bi-weekly when you're traveling to the programs, but almost daily or weekly when you're in person, on campus, connecting in a classroom in more of a formal setting where you're doing your lectures, you're having your conversations. But one of the things that I think we also really enjoyed about the program, and speaking from the San Francisco campus or cohort, was that we also had the pub, and we had other experiences that took you out of that everyday lecture experience, and you had your breakfasts and your lunches. But this is where you actually got to know your peers as well as your professors, who are also peers because we are all executives, and kind of have a certain level of experience. You got to know them a little bit better on a personal level. You got to have more in-depth and rich conversations either about the work you're working on today. But the other thing too that was, I think, at least eye-opening for me is the beauty of the program and the beauty of it being a very thoughtful executive program is that just as much as you're seeking to get information from your professors, they're also seeking information from you, because they're building a lot of this great knowledge that they're sharing with you, but they also want to understand what's actually working in your industry, what's happening, how to get a little bit deeper and have more of that thoughtful conversation around it beyond a textbook, beyond cases and things like that, in a very personal setting with the beer or drink and or dinner, almost weekly or bi-weekly. So I think that's something that was really important. And it's really hard to pinpoint one thing I've learned from professors and or peers. It's a slew of many different things. Some would give you life advice because you have many different age ranges. We had one member in our class who was an orthopedic surgeon, Michael Milne. He just turned 50, I think, during the program. And so he would give a lot of us life advice, marriage advice, kids advice, which is something you don't expect, but it's great to have different types of perspectives. And then, of course, you meet with some of the finance gurus in their industry and or the product engineers And that was something that was really important to me, to meet the different people from different backgrounds, since I had worked at Nike and in that sportswear marketing industry for so long. So just really being able to go deep with them in very personal ways around what they're experiencing from a skill level at work, but also from everything about how do you negotiate for a different salary? How do you have a really tough conversation with your team or your boss and do it in a way where you don't have that competition factor because you don't work together and you're not competing within your industry, but really a place of care and connectivity with that cohort. So that's a great question. You're going to learn a ton. You'll be surprised the types of things you learn throughout the program, personal, professional, educational, etc. But those are just a few to name.
Yeah, I love that notion of you're going to be surprised by what you're going to learn. I think for me, the biggest thing I learned is there's always, you think of yourself as really pushing yourself and having a lot on your plate and really crushing it, and you're really on top of all these things that you want to do, and you have these dreams and goals and da 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 da. And then you get to class and there are 98 other people who are just as equally motivated and crushing it and out there, if not doing more than you're even dreaming of doing. And it's just this super motivation to see folks that are truly inspirational in what it is that they do and how they're able to kind of pursue whatever it is that they're passionate about. So I would say that was my biggest learning from my classmates, this notion of, is there a limit on how much I can accomplish? Is there a limit on what I can do with my time? And just seeing that folks have the same 24 hours you do, and they're coming up with ways to pursue what they're passionate about. And it was really inspirational for me.
Yeah, no, I echo that. I think one of the biggest things walking in was, learning what I was passionate about. I walked into WEMBA, having done 10 years in power and utilities focused on renewable power, and figuring out that, after going through the strategy classes and talking to some of my classmates in different industries, that, I wasn't really passionate about renewables. I love renewables, don't take me wrong. I think it's great for the earth and everything, but it was just not fulfilling what I wanted as, from a career perspective. And I decided to make a career change during WEMBA, which was crazy. I went into the food sector, and ended up getting a phenomenal role with a Toronto-based company. Took that company through the sale process to Mondelez International. Then I was gonna, take some time off because it was pretty taxing to do WEMBA plus a major divestiture. And then one of my classmates at WEMBA called me and he's like, "Hey, they're recruiting for this position. I think you'd be perfect. You just finish this thing off." And now I'm the head of M&A of one of the fastest growing CPG companies in the United States, backed by Advent International. So it's been a wild ride, and you just don't know what you're going to learn. It's hard to compartmentalize because it's different for everybody. Yeah.
We have a good question here from Christopher that I'm going to throw out there. What are some good ways to study during your commute? Some good tactical ways to kind of maximize that time? Not you, Vidya.
I cannot answer that question.
you know sooner got airborne you were landing. So.
I did make a lot of friends on the plane, though, I'll tell you that.
Bose headphones for sure. Noise cancellation, Bose headphones with spa sounds in the background worked for me during my commutes. But iPads or tablets were great for space, and you can't do everything within an hour and a half-ish flight. And like David, you probably had a little bit longer flight than most of us, but you can definitely be thoughtful about either reading, planning, or sleeping. Get an eye mask too, that's very helpful. With a little scent in there to help block out anything else that might be around you on the plane, and you're in a good space.
Yeah, headphones definitely help. Another tip, when I was flying, I had some classmates that were also from Houston, and sometimes we flew in different flights, different times, just given that there's several options from here. But when we were in the same flight, we did not try to sit next to each other, and because that would just turn into a social hour. And so maybe that sounds strange, but there'll be enough social time in the program that you don't necessarily need that. And so, yeah, block out that time. I mean, you'll find different tips, what works for you, if that's reading from an iPad or if that's opening the book. Some books are quite big and you just find that it's not convenient enough to fold out in the small tables. So it's a learning process.
Anyone else want to weigh in?
I can weigh in from the standpoint, one time on a flight and it was after class, and I was sitting next to a student, and I was really impressed that he pulled out his books and materials after this long weekend of class, and I said, wow, you're going to study now. And he had 6 children at home, and he said, well, I'm not doing any hardcore studying at this point. However, what I am doing is kind of reflecting on what happened during the weekend and developing a plan going into the next week and beyond, just a study plan and kind of laying out my time so that I'm well organized when I hit the ground on Monday. Because he said, once I land, that's it. I'm dedicating that time to my family on Saturday night and to them on Sunday. And then Monday I'll get going again, and at least I'll have my plan all laid out for the next week. So I thought that was very interesting.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I would definitely say whatever choice you make, it is a time trade-off, right? You have a finite amount of time you're going to have in the program. You have a finite amount of time to dedicate to your family, to school, whatever it is that you're prioritizing. So whatever you choose to do, and that's absolutely something I probably should have done instead of just screwing around. But it definitely is one of those things that you make that choice, and then it either makes your life easier or harder later.
We've gotten a couple questions about what happens when things go very wrong and whether or otherwise you don't make it into the program. So I would love it if you guys would share about your class managers, how they can help, and your teams and the support that you get if you've done everything you can to arrive, but things don't work out. How do those factors weigh in?
Yeah, no, no issues if you don't make it in weather-wise. Most of the classes, if not all, Diane or Barb, please correct me there, but they're recorded. So your class manager will send you the recording of the class you've missed. You will for sure make friends, and they'll be more than happy to help you with notes, homework, whatever. And even if you have a midterm, I actually think, thinking back, I believe I missed the midterm because of a canceled flight, and it just got rescheduled. For a time. I think it was I didn't have a class in a certain block, and talked with Professor Smatters, and he allowed me to take it, and it wasn't a big deal.
I echo the same thing, Santiago. It's there's really the class manager is really helpful and very personable. It's not incredibly structured in a way where you have to manage your conversation. You have very casual conversations and email exchanges with them, so it's really easy to quickly share that something may have happened with your flight, and they'll all work together to solve it. So you don't have to get all worked up about it. They definitely find a way to make it easy because they know it can happen at any moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I look back, I think I took over 50 flights, 50 trips in the program. I never missed a class due to a flight problem. Although going to the program, I always made sure that going there, I was taking a direct flight.
Yeah.
But coming home, I would be open to doing a non-direct to save some money. That did cost me once when I came home through Chicago, And sure enough, there was a storm, and had to sleep on the floor of the Chicago airport and take the next flight in the morning after. But yeah, so that was my tip. Always prioritize a direct flight going to school just to minimize the chance of missing class. I did miss a weekend for health reasons, and as mentioned, the class directors are super helpful, and if you notify them that they'll get you the recordings, and professors also accommodate those type of reasons.
Yeah, I know you were dealing with snowstorms and fog, but when you would go home, you would also deal with hurricanes and flooding. So you were getting it from all sides.
And the expectation is that you're signing on, for the 2-year program or 6 terms and to be in class each weekend. But we do know that life doesn't stop and things do happen. And, as Carol mentioned, you have a class manager for each class that is really going to oversee your class throughout the 2 years. And they will be your go-to person and help shepherd you through that experience. So if anything comes up, they've got your back there. So we did have a question from someone local, whether it's required for someone who's local either in Philadelphia or San Francisco to stay in the hotel or at the conference center. That piece is built into the tuition. We do not break it out because it is a residential program, and we really want you to be selfish with this time and set aside all of your busy personal life to really focus on the education and to immerse yourself with your classmates. There will be evenings where you'll go late, whether you're doing study groups or you have an activity or whatnot, and we don't want all of our out-of-town people to be there by themselves, so we do not break that out of tuition. Everybody does have a private room at one of the campuses.
If I had been a local, I would have never wanted to not stay in the hotel because there was just so much happening outside of campus, whether it's dinners, study groups, debates, going for a run in the morning, right? Like the smallest of things are just that much harder if you're not proximate to each other. And this just makes it so much easier to share those moments together.
Yeah, no, all my friends that were local, they all always stayed at the hotel. Actually, and one of them, even his wife would come and stay at the hotel, so she could go and socialize with the class. So everybody really embraces that. It's a significant part of the program.
So bringing partners along was a big deal in our program, at least in our class. A lot of partners would join in Friday night pub, and my husband would fly up from San Francisco with me or from San Diego with me and get to know each other. And it's as much as you're going through like this personal development and change, your partner or people that are close to you in your life are also seeing you go through this change, and this just helps them experience it with you and I don't know, learn the other perspectives from other spouses and hear what they're going through as well. There was even a group of husbands that would go golfing Saturday morning when all of us would go to class. So it definitely takes on its own life where once you have a community, it really is more than just classmates.
Yeah, we will give you the Wharton academic experience because of all the requirements we have, but we want to give you a true Wharton experience by being together, bonding, the teamwork, and the support. So that's why we have a residency requirement. And a lot happens on Friday nights and first thing Saturday mornings. There's the runs on the Embarcadero and the runs up the Rocky Steps. And I know people enjoyed on both coasts.
And truly, that's when you really get to know your classmates. I mean, and that's your network, and the power of your network is getting to know your classmates and having that interaction. And it's tough to be chit-chatting and socializing, of course, while you're in class. So it's really during those downtimes at breakfast or lunch or dinner or those runs or the study groups or, at pub or whatnot that you get to know your classmates.
It's funny too, because now having been at the program for a year, I think, of course, the academic part is phenomenal. When the 2 years are over, you will be happy that you moved on from that piece and all the rigor, but you'll appreciate it while you're there. But there is almost with this withdrawal experience because you're no longer connecting with your new friends and your new family as frequently. And even to date, there are a group of girls we meet with weekly. We meet weekly every Sunday at 10 a.m. We have a Zoom call and catch up, and then we have different sessions because we're trying to connect and continue to create that bond. So I think that just is a testament to how much. Yes, the academic piece is incredibly important. You'll see everyone while you're on campus, but that bond you build is something that a lot of times I think most of us are seeing continues after the program. And that's kind of the mark of really building a full experience. So I wouldn't try to skimp out on the hotel pieces if you think it might seem simple now, because I think we all did when we first started. Oh, I live on campus, or I live in San Francisco. I won't check into my hotel, but we'll make sure it's paid for. You'll start to quickly miss out on a lot of those opportunities before and after the program. So just underscoring that point because it is important.
Thanks. So
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, go ahead, David, please.
Okay, yeah, just a quick, so maybe going back to a comment about comparing the two coasts, and this is also travel related, but not only are people traveling, but the professors are traveling. Most professors are East Coast based. And so the West Coast, the people have the impression that maybe the professor quality is less there because they're just getting local professors. That's not true. Most of the professors are flying in from the East Coast. And so the quality of professors are equal. You may even have some of the outstanding professors that get in the West Coast that are not available for the East Coast and vice versa. But overall, it's my experience having done both. They're really on par what they offer to both coasts in terms of professor qualities.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice that we bake it into the curriculum that each coast experiences the opposite coast, but the West Coast is not missing out on anything. When they are on the East Coast, they don't know anything more about the Penn campus than our students do. There's just not time. So it's definitely equalized that way. And on that note, we have a question about, given that everybody is so far flung, how do you study in between times if everything's done in teams and cohorts? How do you make sure that that's happening between class weekends?
So we used to have, my study group would have a call every week when we weren't in person. And this was mostly for the first year because that's kind of when you have that core group of folks that you're with for specific classes. And so we would have a call, we would catch up on whatever needed to happen, and we were able to kind of prioritize working through projects that way. I think I alluded to it before, but there was a decent sized Wharton community in San Diego. So me and one of my other classmates, we would get together, do our econ homework together, study together, and it was just, it was nice to have a person nearby me that you could then say, it's both that physical and emotional connection where you can also work through things together. It's just a little bit easier when you have someone like that.
Yeah, no, as I reflect back, it's evenings, typically, set up a time with your group. We also, my small learning team also had, a weekly call scheduled. But a lot of the time we would be kind of tactical about, assignments and be like, 2 of us are doing this one, 3 of us are doing that one type of thing. And then you would just, coordinate. It was pretty seamless. Like, with Wharton, you get access to Blue Jeans. So, we do video conferences, and yeah, you just become a video conference pro if you're not already one because of COVID. But yeah, no, it never really got in the way, and I still I found I built great relationships over just tackling homeworks on the phone over video conference. Yeah, sometimes I'd be jumping on a call with a team member or whatnot, and it was supposed to be 30 minutes, and we'd take an hour and a half because we'd spend the first half an hour talking about the project, and then the next hour talking about our lives and our plans, careers, whatever, family. So it was pretty seamless, at least from my perspective.
Same, I echo that from those guys. Oh, go ahead, Biddy.
Real life continues, right? So most of us have jobs at some level, at least prior to this COVID time, of travel, and that continues, right? So even if you are theoretically local, you're not guaranteed to even be in town. So
yeah,
you figure it out.
Yeah, as far as demands for study team activities, so in your first year as well as second year, some of the activities will be team-based, and then there will be individual activities like studying for an individual exam. So you have time that you need to give to your team, and then there's time that you need to put into those individual activities. My advice has always been, don't drop the effort that you need to give to the team, because then other people are relying on you. So make sure you prioritize that. And then when it comes to how much effort you put into studying for an exam, which is just going to be you, an individual exam, and the score, you don't have to tell anyone what the result is. That's up to you. And yeah, if you're trying to achieve top marks and high class ranks, you may end up spending, it may require a lot of individual time in addition to the time with the study team. But what happens is first term, most people walk in, obviously a very accomplished class. Everyone thinks that they're going to be a top student academically, but obviously statistically, not everyone could be a top student. So first year, people will learn, adjust to what grades they're seeing and how it's affecting their personal life, and kind of recalibrate how much time you're putting into those individual assignments. So you'll learn after the first term, and then find a niche that works for you, that achieves the balance that you need.
Yeah, and that's such an important part too. I think as you all start working with your teams, making sure everyone's aware of each person's goal on the team is key, because there may be one or two people who are seriously hoping to become a Palmer Scholar and actually in the pathway to become that. And there are others who might be trying to learn a specific skill set out of that project and want to go deep there. So the goals and like motivational factors can really vary. So having that conversation up front definitely helps create the right type of team dynamic and determine where to place your time based on all the many different projects and courses you might be taking. So don't underestimate having that conversation.
So I totally underestimated having that conversation, and it resulted in a team that just like spiraled out of control, because one would imagine we're all motivated by the same reasons to be at a high performing program, but reality is it's actually very different. So I 800% echo that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good conversation. But to what David was alluding, pull through for your team, because that was one of the issues we faced in my team. And it was funny because at first we had the conversation, and there was somebody that talked about, I don't really care about grades, and that's that. But she was extremely dependable. Like, she would always pull through and always meet her commitments. And there was this other person who had said, I'm here to get Palmer, and he would just never give us his part of the work on time and stuff. And it created, it created problems, because some of my teammates, like, they had bigger families, kids, and they're planning for their week, and if they said, hey, I need this Tuesday, it's because they set Tuesday aside, and I'm sorry, it's now Thursday, and here's my part, might not fly. So be respectful of people's times. I think that's important in the program.
Absolutely.
I know we're getting close to the end of our hour, and we would be remiss if we didn't mention, regardless of which coast you decide, again, you have that flexibility to take classes on the opposite coast in year 2. If you decide to stay on your same coast for the entire 2 years, do know that you still have a lot of integration with the other coast. So we all start off together, both East and West, in Philadelphia for our first 1 week, the end of May, for orientation and first week of classes. There's then a time a little later in the first year where the East Coast cohort comes to San Francisco for a week-long marketing simulation class in which we're mixing the study groups in teams East and West, so you get to work with your counterparts then. And then in year 2 on our Global Business Week, people can choose from 4 different locations. Both classes are choosing East and West, and again, the audiences are mixed, as well as through our global modular courses, if you decide to participate in any of those, which are anywhere from 3 to 7 days, led by Wharton faculty in other parts of the globe, and your mixed audiences there again. So no matter what, you have a wide spread of Wharton classmates with you that span across the country and sometimes a little further.
So yeah, to finish off this session, if the panelists wouldn't mind maybe sharing a last tip or thought to the viewers here tonight, and we'll do it geographically as we did at the outset. Vidya.
Yeah, so I guess my parting thought would be the program is what you put into it, right? Your willingness and the time you carve out for this, as Barb alluded to, be selfish with this time. It's a commitment in many ways, but the return on investment is massive, and you can find yourself going down a completely different career path, but find that happiness that you never thought you could achieve in your career prior to this. So it really does alter your life in the greatest way possible if you let it.
I would say really just realize how precious it is to almost create this new ecosystem and small world for yourself. I think a lot of people almost created a complete, I don't want to call it a completely different life experience, but there's almost this new segment of community, geographical experience, like going to San Francisco or Philly every other weekend, like truly takes you out of your everyday work and life experience and put you into something new. And you're challenged in so many new ways, rigorous challenges and very sweet challenges. And so I just want to make sure the team doesn't underestimate how precious the ability to build that type of added piece to your life ecosystem is, and really treasure it, because it's something that once it's gone, you realize even more how important and just beneficial that was. So the fact that you are traveling in is actually almost an added advantage, because you get a full new experience every other week. And the last thing I'll say, I don't know if there are any parents out there, but I did notice too, a lot of the people who were parents, I felt like they actually love coming to the program because maybe they got a little bit more sleep and or got a chance to like escape for a quick moment. So that's also something too that I realized from a lot of the parents in the program. Mm-hmm. Who's next?
Yeah, I'll go next.
Or David?
Yeah, so I know going into the program, the travel may be intimidating, carving out that extra time on top of your work and your personal life, but you'll be just surprised at how efficient you become. And so even the first year, as I mentioned, I was doing classes on primarily on the West Coast. But in the second year, the electives in the classes itself are staggered. East Coast has classes 1 weekend and West Coast in the other. And the choice of electives are also different. So the second year, if you're taking your class at one coast, but you like an elective on the other coast, on your off weekend, you can travel to that coast and take classes. And I did that for some time. So I was traveling one coast each opposite weekend for several months. And yeah, it sounds crazy, but again, you just learn this new level of efficiency, finding out what you can block out of life, and then we haven't even mentioned some of the extreme travel examples that these classes have seen. So there's people have commuted to the program from Moscow, from London,
Brazil.
So anytime you hear those examples, anything that I've gone through, it just seems like nothing. So you'll find the efficiency, and it'll work out.
That's a great point.
Yeah, no, I guess my parting thoughts are embrace the travel. It's part of the experience. It gets you to really get to know your classmates. It's actually a plus. It's not a negative. That's really my takeaway when it comes to travel. And when it comes to the program, it's a great place to learn about yourself, learn about new subjects that you might have not learn from your classmates, which are just phenomenal and have these great experiences, and you're going to get exposure to just things that you have just never imagined, and it's overall just a great life experience that'll help you, grow personally and professionally.
And
Thank you.
Carol's comment actually leads very nicely into next week's panel. Is going to be about balancing work and family. We're going to feature the students who were parents during the program, and some became parents or grew their families while they were in the program.
We'll be doing these webinars on a weekly basis, so log in to our website, and there we have a list of them. We hope that you'll engage with us throughout this process. There's a lot of different opportunities for that. If you have questions about your individual candidacy, please schedule a chat. Our team is here to help you through the process. To our panelists, thank you so much. It's so good seeing you all. And Diane and I look forward to when we can hit the road again and see you in person.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Have a great night.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.